How's it going, everybody? Moses here, bringing you another Wolson video guide, and this time the staff-wielding caster, pure mage, no crossbow catalyst combo. Um, First, I want to go through the difference between Y catalyst and all that kind of stuff. First, I wanted to make sure that we're just using spells. Very quickly, if you're using a bow or a crossbow, it becomes, well, I'm actually doing a lot more damage with my bow skills or pistol, not crossbow, but pistol, pistol skills, and my spells are kind of underwhelming. And then it really quickly becomes my spells are just going to be a utility, maybe Bulwark of Dawn, maybe Aether Walk, but then vast majority of my damage I'll do with like Mark of Impurity, with insert damage dealer name here, like Gunslinger, Deathgazer, or Havoc Orb, right? So I wanted to make a pure caster, staff wielder, no attacks, no bow, pistol skills in this build, and see how that will work. Against the end game, so far we're doing pretty good, but yeah, we'll see how that develops. For now, though, I did make a huge mistake and accidentally ruined my staff. My staff had Aether and Shadow damage, and we are trying to curse and apply Occult type damage, scale Occult type damage on our gear and on our tree. And I accidentally re-rolled it. It was kind of unfortunate. It's in my clips. It's gone, but I did manage to. Well, I bought 100 GEOs for like $500,000 gold, and here we are now. I spammed a whole bunch of them. I got a triple damage with leech, with crit damage. This is basically identical, except instead of we had Shadow, Aether, and Lightning, we now have Frost, Fire, and Aether, which ends up being decent because Frost is the highest and it freezes enemies. So let's go through the skills first. We have Thunderstrike that we're essentially using to add kind of like a big chunk of damage. Gives a buff that allows you to deal additional damage based on the base element of this skill. This node right here, Storm of Sunset, allows us to convert the damage into shadow, providing us with bonus shadow damage. So if we look at the tooltip over here, it says average damage is... let's look at Tear of Athelia. It's like my highest damage spell. 5, 4, 6, 4. And if we use this, 5, 4, 6, 4 becomes 6, 5. So 1.1k damage increase. That's like 20% more damage from this spell alone. So we're using Thunderstrike. It's incredibly strong, adding a whole bunch of shadow damage to all of our spells across the board. Its actual tooltip is not something we use. That's why we're not scaling cast speed. A lot of the stats were changed. Instead of stacking a lot of agility that we needed with the Infinity Blade, we now try to stack as much ferocity as we can. Wisdom is fine as long as we have roughly 20% chance to apply Ailement. That's all we need. But we do want as much ferocity as we can, and I do have still quite a lot of agility because my gear is not perfect. We have agility rolled on here, here. I think I have agility on other pieces instead of ferocity. So yeah, over here on these gloves. So there's still a lot that can be changed. The character is far from done, far from all the slots on our gear is exactly what I want them to be, but it is doing quite well in that sense. So Thunderstrike is used for that purpose, converting to shadow and then applying an additional massive shadow damage to spells or attacks. Essentially now it's only spells because we're using a staff, but you can use Thunderstrike as well in a different combination to add either lightning or shadow, depends on the element. Tear of Atheliel is our most it's like a biggest damage dealing spell right now, with sitting at 5.5k tooltip pre-buffs. Bulwark of Dawn allows us to heal AoE damage around us. Anomaly pulls enemies, applies stasis and curse. Okay, all of our spells right now, because of the cold and shadow damage from the sockets in the gems in the staff. Gives us curses. Sorry, gives us curses and freeze. Curse and freeze here. Curse and freeze here. Over here we have curse and freeze as well, but here we have stasis and curses. So this will deal mostly aether damage and shadow damage, determining the two stasis and curse types of ailments we can get from the spell. And here, because this is sacred damage and shadow damage, we'll have curses and weakness. Weakness reduces damage monsters deal. Curse increases damage monsters take. So when you're cursing an enemy, it will take more damage, and when you're weakening an enemy, it will deal less damage to you. On top of that, stasis is slowing down enemies' attack speed, movement speed, and of course allowing us to use which time cannot heal and the differential wounds, giving us 120% more multiplier to a global roll of everything we do, essentially a second 0.5 later. Right? So we want enemies to be stasis. This is why we have Anomaly and Aether Walk, which teleport applies the fragments of Aether. Enemies that begin and end the teleport are inflicted with stasis. You see we have two explosions here that will apply to enemies in the area stasis. So yeah, this will be up at all times. So we got you know, stasis, curses, and freeze. And weaken and like weakness happening with our character, 4 different types of ailments. But there is a difference between how many stacks of ailments can an enemy have and how many types of ailments you can apply with each spell or with each skill. Thunderstrike and the rest of my skills apply 2 ailment types every time I hit, and they roll chance to apply elements. That's the 20, almost 20% over here. So every one of my skills, when it ticks, it has a chance to roll an ailment to affect an enemy with an ailment. But here we have 2 types of ailment with each spell. This is thanks to Kabbalist's Grievous Affliction, an extremely important node for any kind of ailment build. Of course, we want to increase the number of types of ailments that a skill can apply. The second thing is you know, how many ailments can we apply per hit, right? When we hit with an enemy, when a spell ticks, how many can we actually apply? How many stacks of these elements can we apply? So here we got a chance to multiply the number of element stacks by 2, and here we got an increase of +2 inflicted. This gives us 3 instead of 1 inflicted all at once, and then this gives us 50% chance to inflict 6. So on average, we will apply 4.5 elements per hit whenever we stack, right? So on average, this will continuously will happen when we apply all of our elements using all of our attacks, and the global maximum number of maximum element we can stack on an enemy is going to be 30, and that's thanks to the fact that basically we have the basic roll, which is 10, and then the basic, you know, maximum cap of number of elements is 10. And then we have +5 over here, +5 over here. So we're getting +20 from the tree, +10 from the basic number of how many stacks we can apply. So this is kind of like a short explanation on elements, how they work, and just for you to understand just the mechanics of a character in Wolcen, right? That's kind of like something you should be aware of. Very important stuff if you want to understand ailments. Yeah, so this is something I kind of really wanted to go through. Outside of that, the types of elements are as shown. I can go over the skills so you guys can check out the modifiers I'm using right now. All of the skills are past level 60, which means they have all unlocked the 10 points, and of course all the possible modifiers over here. If you see something that you think I may improve, feel free to leave that in the comments below. But these are currently the ones I'm using over here. And I think we're in a pretty solid spot. Like, these I don't think are going to change. I'm not going to go through every one, explain exactly what they do, except this one, which is the important one, converting, which we already talked about. converting to curse shadow damage. And here, teleport to apply additional chance to get stasis, right? We have the chance to get stasis from this, 24% stasis chance, and then yeah, we do want the Aether Walk to make sure that we have stasis on the target, more than doubling our damage. Okay, when it comes to the gear, a lot of a spellcaster's damage comes in from flat added damage that comes from jewelry. My jewelry is not very good at the moment. It's just somewhat decent. What we want is to stack as much occult type damage, which is, shadow, aether, and sacred. Mostly shadow because we want curses. We definitely want that to be the highest damage, and we never want like elemental type damage to be the highest, because then we apply burn, we don't apply curses. And yeah, the idea here is to curse enemies to make them take more damage from you with this build. So this is an example of a ring. This is an example of what I currently have. A lot of resists, a lot of life, some transfer time reduction. To be honest, I have way too much transfer time reduction on my character, which leads to near zero transfer time between rage and willpower. But the thing is, with the spells that I'm using, as I'm speaking, I'm going to go through my jewelry. The thing about the spells that I'm using is that they're all cooldown spells. And as cooldown spells, what happens is that they don't cost you too much. So, my rage bar won't be full vast majority of the cases, and I do have double potions of willpower to be able to, give me back my willpower, essentially, when it comes to resource management. So, what that means is that basically, when you're not using a catalyst that gives you a penalty to that, you don't really need to stack that much transfer time reduction. And not only we're not using a catalyst, but we're actually getting a bonus for that transfer time reduction on the staff. So the difference here could be up to like 100% difference in terms of that kind of stat. So that's kind of important reason of why we're using a staff, as well as the fact that we just want to be spellcasters. So we're not getting that penalty from the catalyst. In fact, we're getting a bonus to the transfer time reduction, and then I'm stacking that on a lot of items, as we saw, which means that it's definitely, I can definitely lose a couple of items and the character would still feel alright. You don't have to have this much of this. What is important though is cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction is pretty strong because our solar fall, our every one of our every one of our big damage dealing spells, they're all kind of like cooldown based. So you really kind of want to have as much cooldown as possible on your gear. So this is a pretty sweet piece, except the agility. I think I have another cooldown over here. This is like great, just perfect. It's got ferocity, and it's a heavy helmet with roughly 400 resistance. It can be higher, of course, but I think it actually may not be higher if we want cooldown because of the way suffixes, prefixes work, but I'm still not sure about that exactly. So yeah, that's an excellent piece. We definitely want as much cooldown as we can. Over here again, the way that I built this character in terms of gear is I just picked up whatever I had in my stash and kind of used the gear pieces that I thought would fit. Stuff with a lot of resist was my priority, and life, and then stats like ferocity, and then cooldown, transfer time, all these kind of like utility stats. And I tried to get as much flat as I could, but I didn't really have too much great items to use. But from what I used, this is what I came up with, and I'm quite happy with the character overall. But of course, none of the a lot of these pieces will be replaced later on, especially the agility rolls for toughness and mostly ferocity is definitely a priority. And yeah, if this had, for example, ferocity, I would absolutely make that a legendary, but it only has the agility, and agility is not that great for me, so I'm not making it into a legendary. excuse me, an item like this can roll higher resists, for example, potentially, you know, crit chance, stuff like that. One thing that's kind of sad, armor pieces cannot roll cast speed or spell crit chance or stuff like that. They can only roll for attacks on the armor, which is, yeah, you can get those stats on jewelry, but for some reason not on armor. Hopefully it will be fixed. But yeah, this is in terms of gear. In terms of the tree, we are just going to go quickly through, you know, the stuff we're picking up in Kabbalist, pretty much everything. Over here, making sure not to pick up Strike Like Lightning, and then the extra element, the extra stacking of element, the damage per element that enemies killed. This is a nice buff throughout the dungeon for clearing. It will expire when we're facing a single target, simply because we cannot maintain it unless we kill enemies. So it will expire eventually, but it is very nice to have throughout the leveling. We are taking, of course, the Salutary Anchor and Elevated Gains for the resists. All the crit we can gather over here. Damage on nearby enemies, 5% damage on nearby enemies. Considering to take this, but 4 meters is quite a lot. 4 meters is roughly here. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, nearby enemies, something like this. You know, this is roughly 4 meters, maybe a little less than 4 meters, this circle. So maybe slightly larger circle, but roughly that kind of size. So we're a lot of times are going to sit right on top of the monsters, dealing damage. We're very, very tanky. We got a lot of damage reduction, and we do have our you know, Dire Juncture and Practice Stamina to you know, kind of like mitigate even more damage on top of that. And we are picking up some resistance nodes. We will pick up these in the future of the character. As a matter of fact, the next 4 levels, I think that's what I'm going to pick up. We got 20% all resist here, 18 more over here, and then 8 life, and 20 crit damage. So these are definitely stuff that I'm looking forward to. Other than that, we do have some crit. The tree is pretty well tuned, you know, fine-tuned at this point. There are a couple of nodes you could remove to save up some points, but I kind of felt, you know, that I wanted to keep, for example, the spell damage node here and the crit damage node here, since crit damage is nerfed on the tree. A 10% crit damage node, in my opinion, is fairly valuable, and 12% spell damage you could remove if you want, but we do go through the cooldown decrease. We have 20% from the tree. There's another one over here. I might go for it later on, might not, we'll see. I have sufficient cooldown from the tree already, 20%, and from my gear, so I feel like that's fine. But of course, on the gear, these values are much, much, much higher. Kind of like a resource cost reduction that we're getting, you know, here. Obviously, I'm not picking it up, but this is like 5% per node. Here we got 4%, right? So you can get 18% from the tree on these nearby nodes to the center, but over here, an item can have 36, which is literally twice as much, and this is just one item. 35 more here, 39 more here, and 33. So like globally, I think we have like roughly 135, 140% cost reduction, and we compared that to the 18 points that you're getting from the tree. Kind of insignificant. Same idea with cooldown reduction. I managed to get 32 over here. On the pants, I believe I got 33, so 65 total. So for another 10 points to 10 cooldown reduction for 2 points, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference, but for 2 points, 20%, yes, I will pick that one up in a cooldown based build for sure. Other than that, we have the crit over here, Occult Ailment chance score for curses and for weakness, global 60% ailment chance score over here. Over here we have in Occult Affliction a node that I picked up that gives you an increased damage per curse stack. Here's a 5, here's a 2, so 7% increased damage per curse stack. And remember, stacks go up to 30 maximum stacks. We will apply other ailments like weakness and freeze. Excuse me, but a big part of what we do, since every single one of our spells is going to be giving us a curse stack, that means 7% per curse stack. Even if it's only half of 30 maximum, it's going to be 15 times 7. You know, you can do the math. It's over 100% damage increase from 105 damage increase from 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 curse stacks. It's not a more multiplier; it's an increase, but still, it's quite hefty. Over here, we got crit chance over 75 willpower, 75% willpower. We're getting a bonus to our crit chance. This translates into 5% global. So we got currently 64.4. It's going to be 59.7, something like that. If I have less than that, definitely I think for 1 point, decent enough investment. Especially we're going to be mostly topped off with our willpower at most times. Plus 200 max willpower and rage, and which time cannot heal, and dire juncture plus 5 to maximum ailment stacks, and yeah, the crit. That's the tree, and that was the character. That was the gear. When it comes to leveling up this character, I made a video how to level up a character in Wolcen. I definitely stand by it. It was very kind of like smooth, easy, fun leveling process, and it went by pretty quickly. This current difficulty is 110. I am pretending like I did not unlock all the difficulty system with the Bleeding Edge character, just for the sake of, I don't want to just start with the highest possible difficulty this character can make. I want to kind of like grow into it. You know what I mean? So at the moment, 105. We will have, I think, a Justicar on this map. So I don't know, it could be a bit annoying. That Justicar guy with the shield, yeah, he is kind of a pain. Ooh, what is this? Pantalones, very cool. So yeah, he's kind of annoying, but guys, if that's what we have to do in order to make a video, that's what we have to do. I do like this Republican forest. It's a very nice kind of like map layout, and I do enjoy it. Maybe this will be a Justicar, will give us a preview to the boss. No, that's an Alistair. Oh, actually, an Alistair might also be a type of monster we can get. This is still only 107, so monster's HP is not going out of control. But some fights start to take a little longer. The problem is here not with the character or with the build. Unfortunately, in Wolcen, spells scale way worse than attacks, because in Wolcen, it's one of the things I'm talking about in a different video, my concerns about Wolcen. You guys can check it out. One of the things is that attacks scale way better because attacks are based on your weapon, and if you get a 1k DPS weapon, just compare that to whatever we have here, right? We have 160 maximum damage. So imagine if you tried playing Bleeding Edge with like a level 20 sword, that rolled 160 DPS. That's essentially what we're trying to do here. Maximum damage of 160. Right? Because what's going on here is that the only way for us to get flat damage is like jewelry, but mostly from the staff, and the staff can only roll 3 damage rolls of spell damage that at best could be maximum of 60. And if you saw any kind of two-handed weapon in your life in Wolcen, you see that they can easily roll a lot more, like much quicker. Like in terms of low eye level, can roll twice and 3 times as that easily, and real high eye level ones can give you up to 200 maximum damage, even more, 220 maximum damage number. And I'm talking, of course, about the material elemental occult. Like even this staff, it's 172, gives you 98 to 146 physical damage, and that's a staff, right? So that's essentially the equivalent of the spell damage we're getting off of it with Fire, Frost, and Aether. A weapon rolls 120 to 220 Ren damage, and then 115 to 203 toxic damage, and then some random same roughly number of of elements. So weapon can reach easily 1.1k, 1k top damage, and all of your attacks are going to be scaled off of that. Our spells are scaled off of the flat weapon damage that we get, and a very, very, very small damage per level of spells. So the more we level up our spells, the more damage they will do, but the scaling is way worse for spells than it is to attacks. Okay, so that's actually the reason of why you don't really see too many content creators, streamers, people using a lot of spell-based build, because in ARPGs people are all about like grinding the highest difficulty, dropping the highest eye level items, the best possible loot, the highest difficulty, the quickest, right? So people want to be efficient about what they farm, and that makes sense. So they will play melee until Wolcen Studios decides to buff spells, and then, you know, we'll have a spell fiesta, and everybody's going to start making spell builds with staves. So imagine like if they buff spell damage to scale off of the you know, weapon, but increase the values of these to match similar values on two-handed weapons. My build can end up doing you know, 8 or 9 or 10 times more the damage that it's currently doing. So it could be quite impactful, to say the least. You know, so it will make obviously it would make spells a lot more viable, and then the double knockback. It would make spells a lot more viable. But even now, like you can see, like we're blasting, enemies are dying, legendaries are dropping, all good. It's still a caster, and you know, ooh, that's not a terrible piece. Let me check it out closer. We do very much want cooldown reduction on pieces we can get it. So far I haven't rolled cooldown reduction on gloves or shoulders, only seen it on chests, helms, and pants. So I don't know for a fact what can and cannot roll just yet on all the possible items in this game, because, you know, I'll get a better feeling of it once I play more. But yeah, this is definitely a stat that you want to have wherever you can get it. This rolled agility, transfer time, occult damage. Occult damage is good for us, but outside of that, let's just entertain the idea of just like the flat damage, 5512. And if we get an increased occult damage, it goes 5502. Why does it go down? What do I have here? That's interesting. Oh yeah, more agility than this one. So yeah, more agility gives us a higher, you know, higher damage bonus over here. So stats are, I guess, more important. So we lose overall damage even though it has 26 occult. Oh well. Okay, this is either a Justicar or an Alistair. Either way, these soldier bosses are going to be annoying. It's going to be a Justicar. Nope, Alistair, hype. I actually don't know if it's like much better, because like he disappears all the time, and like he moves a lot. But you know, when he stands still, you can see we are blowing him up. This is only a 6.5 million HP boss, so it's nothing to write home about. But again, the scaling of the way that spells scale in this game, you know, we'll see how that goes. We'll see what kind of difficulty we're going to be able to push with my character, and I can't wait to level up a little bit more. This was the Mage build guide. Hope you enjoyed it. Staffs for everybody. Thanks for watching, and I'll leave a tree in the description below. But also, guys, use your own judgment. Seriously, a lot of time, like I made this character almost level 70, just about. I think I respec this character at least 15 times at this point. Always testing out other things, always trying to modify, improve, fine-tune. I cannot and will not, in fact, go and update every one of my single videos every time I change a single point on the tree to make it slightly more efficient. Okay, I give you the core ideas, and I expect you to not blindly copy what I do, but exercise some judgment. And if you see something that is not 100% efficient, instead of just, you can make a comment on the YouTube. I'm not promising I'm going to change anything, but I'll definitely you can come to the stream and tell me live, because I'm streaming all the time. Hey Moses, you can make this a little bit more efficient if you just rotate the tree one circle to the left, and I'll be like, okay, cool, nice. But I'm not going to rush to my YouTube and change the tree, okay? These things, like, I show you the idea of the build, I show what I did. You guys need to take it from this point and customize it and modify it to whatever you think is best and whatever you test. If you have something to share, absolutely. If you think you can improve the build in some way, if you find a cluster that you think is going to be worthwhile for me to take instead of, I don't know, the crit over here and investing these points, cut this thing off and go to a different cluster on the tree, I'll definitely consider. But don't be like, hey, now can I get an updated tree? Can you update the tree? No, the tree is there, it's going to remain there, and changes will happen because it continuously changes. But I'm not going to jump back to every single one of my YouTube video every time I make a small change to the tree. You just gotta exercise some judgment and learn and improve for yourselves. All right, so I just unable to do that. It doesn't make sense for me to keep doing that and continuing to update the things for every tiny little small change. Don't blindly copy things from me or from anyone for that matter. Think for yourself, use your own brain, you have it, and just make use of it. And try and exercise some judgment and learn for yourself. Feel free to hop into the stream and ask any questions. I would gladly answer. Leave comments, I'll try and read everything and answer as well. And make sure to follow me on Twitch, Twitter. Feel free to support the stream. Definitely appreciate all your donations, all your Twitch subscriptions. Definitely helps a lot. I don't gain any kind of revenue off of YouTube. YouTube is not like the main source of income for me from all of this, but I do stream a lot on Twitch and would love to see you guys in my be a part of my Twitch community. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.